You are listening to the USDN on the DFPN.
It's a trap!
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the USDN, where we are for the people, by the people, and of the people. Los Angeles, 1920s, a city built on ambition, corruption, and secrets buried beneath the surface, where crime runs deep and justice is never clean. What happens when the one chasing the truth isn't something the world doesn't fully understand, which I found out is wrong? A detective with the past, a city on the edge, and a story rooted in Noir. With the twist, you won't forget. Actually, you will. Today, we step into the world of City of Demons, the mind behind the 12-part indie Noir series, and the mind behind the 12-part indie Noir series. Ladies and gentlemen, the Council of Nerds is now in session. Parker, welcome to the USDN.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, and again, I apologize. I had a complete misunderstanding of things earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Even the title that is currently for this video is incorrect. This is nothing about demons, and I do apologize to everybody out there who thought they were going to watch a podcast or listen to a podcast later that was about demons. It will be corrected when it goes live later on.
At least not literally, but yeah.
Yes, correct. Not literally, but Parker, dude, give us the spiel on kind of like who you are and how you got into comics and storytelling.
Yeah, so I'm a guy, who I'm originally from and still live in North Carolina. I grew up in Asheville, North Carolina. So anyone knows major, humongous art community there. And so always had an affinity for the arts, always had an affinity for storytelling from a super early age. I always love movies, like to read, all that stuff. Even for work now, I'm a videographer for, different commercial shoots, anything with a camera, sign me up. So yeah. I've been able to have a pretty successful career so far doing that. But with comics was something that was always my original love with narrative storytelling. And I read comics growing up mostly due to it was most of my dad's fault, because he would pick me up at these really cheaply made, DC and Marvel used to have a kid line, an all ages line, at least when I was growing up. And so he would buy me, these $3 comics, and I just loved it. One of the first comics I ever got was a comic, Batman Brave and the Bold. When that cartoon was going on, they had a whole comic series. I got that as a kid. And then shortly thereafter, I remember I talked him into getting me at 12 years old, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. Ooh. And I was way too young to read it, to at least fully grasp all the nuances of that story. Yeah. But I was old enough to understand that it was awesome. And my dad, just thought it was, he doesn't really know much about comics, just thought, a Batman comic. And for my 12-year-old son, and changed my life forever, complete changed what I thought a comic book could be, or a comic book, could really grasp. There's so many nuances in that story that as I reread it every year. I'm like, oh, that's really fascinating.
Dude, I'm actually I had the trade paperback of that book, lost it. But thankfully this year, DC's doing the re-release for the anniversary. So I've been picking up the issues off of that. Dude. And I've been so excited rereading that again. It's just been you forget how good it is.
Dude, and there's so many parts, what I hate all the time is when people like I see online when people talk about the comic, they're like, "Oh, Frank Miller making Batman so gritty and dark." It's like there's way more to that story.
Yeah,
like,
it really is.
One of the best sequences ever in comics, at least in my opinion, is where the EMP bomb goes off, and it's these black silhouettes of all the Gothamites helping each other, and Jim Gordon's among them. They're passing the water bucket, and it plays out like a documentary. We have these random characters who are never brought up ever again in the story, or not before, just talking straight to the reader about their experience and what they witnessed.
It was like a reporter was reporting the story. It was really cool.
And but it wasn't done in that same weird, sort of. And so it was so fascinating. And
it was like a fourth wall break without it being a fourth wall break.
Yeah, dude. It was fat. And like just that technique it was like, that's fascinating. And then all that part, I was like, people I think forget about that sort of really great artistic flair that Frank Miller was bringing up at that time.
Yeah.
It focused on Batman being dark and Batman v Superman, but there's so much more to it. And dude, it just changed everything.
It hits so well. And what's up, Kev? Your episode will actually be coming out here soon. I'm editing clips right now for your episode, so stay tuned for that. I had a fat nap yesterday after work, and after that, I was just like done to the world. So, but your episode's coming, dude. But when did you decide you wanted to create your own comic? Because you're still a young guy, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel I'm 26, so I've been from some of the younger guys in my family. I've been made to feel like the old one, but
hey, that's family though.
Yeah, so I've been called Unc and all sorts of other things, so it's okay. But
and you're not officially Unc till you hit my age, and then you're good. Then you can accept that with endearment.
Dude, I talked to my nephew about what's his favorite cartoon. No idea what I was talking about. I was like, oh, geez.
Should have asked him his favorite anime. Then he might have been spot on.
Dude, probably. Yeah, so when I really decided to get into comics was it was just a dream I've always had. And it was always something to where I thought, I just at a certain point grew tired of waiting for the right opportunity to come, because you have to take a step back. And for me, it was realizing I don't have a direct connection to like the big two, Marvel, DC, or even if you want to go big three with Image. I don't have a direct in there. I don't have any way to leverage myself in there. And I was like, so like, what, like, okay, it's like, what, like, why do I, so I had to take a step back. It's like, okay, I want to do this because I love comics. Cool. But why, like, really get even deeper? Like, but why do it at all? Why make comics, period? And for me, it was like, well, shoot, like, I don't need to be part of Marvel, DC, or Image, or whatever, Dark Horse, or, to be making comics. And so for me, it was, I just had that moment where I had this story in the back of my mind, because it was honestly based off an old college script I wrote for a screenplay class. And I took that, it was a screenplay for like, I wrote for like a pilot for class project for a pilot of a TV show. And so I took that script, completely rewrote it to fit the comic book format. And then I just went making the first an issue, which is 20 pages long, just went making it and then showing that off to as many independent publishers as I could. Anyone who has not pursued small press publishing or independent publishing, if you don't know what that looks like, it typically looks like you make the first issue, or at least the first 10 pages.
Yeah, I was going to say the first 8 to 10 pages is what they recommend. And
you have to, at least in my experience, you had to give a marketing proposal, a query letter, which is a simple like, hey, this is this. Like, it can be like 2 or 3 lines, and then you have to do what was it? Essentially, I'm blanking on it, but essentially a very detailed outline of the whole series.
Yeah.
And then, if asked, character profiles, all this sorts of stuff. And no offense to my publisher, but not going to lie, I kind of threw away the outline after I got the deal. I was like, this is not good. But so after all that, you send it out to publishers, and it was a constant storm of being ghosted, of just no reply, or someone saying, hey, we're interested in this, want to talk more. no reply. And when I mean no reply, I don't mean like, oh, I sent them an email, they didn't reply. I mean, I sent them, for one person in particular, I sent them 10 emails, and I had the phone number. Because they were like, oh, we really like this. I called them 16 times within the span of a month. Nothing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I call you 16 times. And I was like, does this person still work there? Yeah, they do. And so that happened several times, that same sort of pattern. Ghosted. And at about 6 months, it's just this endless cycle. And you're like, am I crazy? Like, does this actually just suck? Like, I don't think it does, but maybe I'm too close to it. It just sucks. And at a certain point, with one of the bigger independent publishers, we got a rejection letter. And I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm just going to reply. Like, why did this not work for you? And I phrased, of course, like, how can I improve on all that stuff? So I asked them that. And the reply back was, oh, no, I actually really liked it. I actually really liked what you submitted. But the problem is that it's your first comic. And the problem is that no one knows you, and no one knows your artist, and no one knows anyone attached to the project. And I was like, that was such a hard pill to swallow, because it's like, you have something good that's objectively, at the very least, good. Mm-hmm. And someone's just going to turn away from you, and because you're just such an unknown. And
it's wild, because they don't tell you like what kind of portfolio to bring in. Like, how many titles do I need under my belt for you to even look at me? Yeah. They don't tell you that part, and nobody knows, because I've never had anybody come on who's ever said like, hey, you need to have at least 3 to 4 titles under your belt before even shooting your shot with like the big 5, Marvel, DC, Image, Boom Studios, and Dark Horse. That's my big 5. And what's crazy is Dark Horse don't even make up a 0.1% of total sales within the comic book world.
And all this stuff about name recognition, obviously I get it, like, just on paper, but at a certain point, it's like, to be perfectly honest, I don't think it particularly matters a lot for a lot of different comics. Because I think if you have enough distribution base and you have something that's really killer, the word of mouth, which is super strong, especially, I mean, just in comics in general, but especially in the independent scene, word of mouth is going to carry that. And so
100%.
And also to be honest, my personal opinion, when I get a reply like, oh, you're unknown or whatever, is I perceive that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I perceive that that's a person or a company or whatever that may lack vision. It's like, you see something good. So you see there's talent here to work with. So why not start an early business relationship? Get that person in, on day one. Why not? And
they may not even know at that point who they are.
Yeah.
As a publisher. I've seen that too. Where when you go to their website and you're looking at the books they're publishing, and they're all over the place, and you're like, who are these people really? Because you flip that and be like, well, who are you exactly?
Yeah, dude. And it's like, with some of them, it was, I was just bummed out, because I'm like, I'm not going to be specific. That project got greenlit? Like, really?
Yeah, no, I've seen some bad projects get greenlit just by name recognition, and you read it and you're like, and 2-3 weeks later, you're back at your local comic shop and you're like, yeah, no, dude, I don't know, that was garbage. I don't want that.
Dude, and it's like, I kept seeing that. And to be honest, something that gave me confidence with pursuing this, even though it felt like everything was against me, was you see something really bad get published. I tell anyone, if you think you're suffering from imposter syndrome, look, not just at comics, but just anything published. There's some really horrible things published. Yeah. So if they can do it, I think you can. Yeah. So,
dude, I look at that the same as I look at the independent book scene, right?
Yeah.
There's some stories on the independent book scene that get published by publishers. And, there's certain aspects of that book you're like, oh, man, I really like the title. I really like the synopsis of this story. And you buy the book, and it is littered with, just horrible, writing. It's littered with, who proofread this? there's a whole paragraph and it's nothing but a single run-on sentence. Like, who did this?
Dude, and that's the part where I was like, oh gosh, dude, like there has to be some, door for me to enter. And that came, at least initially, in the publisher Blood Moon Comics that was headed up by Keith Rommel. And so I was like, oh, thank goodness. Like someone gets it, and Keith Rommel's a good guy. And Blood Moon was really starting to hit their stride, starting to build a really core horror audience, because they were mostly independent horror. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, this would be like, it's not horror. City of Demons isn't horror, but it's noir. It totally fits well with the catalog. And so it was all going well. We had produced 6 issues just on the back end. So because we were going to release it very quickly. And a month before the release of our first issue, it had all been printed. So to my knowledge, there's a warehouse somewhere with Blood Moon, City of Demons issue 1 somewhere. Yeah. So the month before it's released, I'm emailing Keith, the head of Blood Moon, be like, hey dude, like, everything good to go, like just making sure, blah blah blah. Told my local LCS, book signing, blah, blah, all this stuff. And he goes back, he emails me saying, hey dude, we're going to be shutting our doors. And I was like, oh, and also side note, and this was whole due to the Diamond distribution fiasco, which is just horrible. Yeah. But on that one day, so that day was like a triple whammy, dude. It
always is, dude. It's always 3.
Dude, on that day, my girlfriend at the time broke up with me. I had just a crazy rough day at work. Like, I just hated it. I was just in a foul mood, and then my girlfriend makes up with me. And then I get the email back from Keith saying, "Oh yeah, Blood Moon's deal." I'm like, "Oh, this is horrible."
Just rich that knife in there,
Dude, it was brutal. And then I was like, I just sat there. I remember my apartment, just sat here. I was like, because you put in all this work, all this time, and you're like, what's it for? That's the feeling. You're like, I just wasted so much time, on this dream that's not going to happen anymore. And so from Blood Moon was one of the first ones to fall. And then from that, it was like everything, all these independent small press publishers started just closing down. Because they all had exclusivity deals with Diamond, like every company did. And they weren't big enough to take the bleeding like Marvel or DC or Image, where they could just cancel that, switch over to Lunar
or Penguin.
Yeah. And dude, it was, oh my gosh, dude, it was, the whole thing with the Diamond was insanity. The whole way that has been going on was just crazy. Which honestly, the direct market, which, Diamond had doing forever. I've been saying that even since I was a teenager. I was like, there's no way this business model is
dude, it's not. And they proved it.
Cards, bro.
It was. There was people jumping ship. They were paying themselves out of their distribution deal with Diamond. I think Boom was one of the first ones that was like, here's whatever it is we need to pay. We're done with you. Yeah. And they jumped over to Penguin, I believe. Maybe Lunar. I can't remember which.
It was insane because but what hurt with Diamond was, so even before they closed, they were so horribly mismanaged.
And they had been for years at that point.
And the thing is, with independent comics, a big thing is you got to be consistent. Whether it's every month, every other month, you got to hit those deadlines. Yeah. You got to hit that. You got to be in stores, because when people add to your pull list, you got to think about they're adding you on, because they can. You're not a Batman, you're not a Spider-Man, where people will gravitate you. Even if your book's subpar, they'll still get it because
it's Batman, it's Superman,
Spider-Man,
it's X-Men.
Exactly. So it's they're making an exception out of their budget, out of their time for you. Yeah. And so, which means you got to prioritize the customer at all points, and they don't care if it's Diamond's fault that your book's shipping late. And so that's the whole deal, dude. And then after that,
dude, it was hurting, man, because I was like, I go into my LCS to pick up my pulls, and I might have a 5-book week or a 20-book week to follow in.
Yeah.
There was never any consistency there. And I'm just like, I need this nightmare to freaking end. It got to a point where I was texting my LCS just to go, hey, what's it look like today? He's like, we'll skip it. He's like, it'll be in your box next week. Just skip this week. And I would just skip that week and just pick up my pulls the following week or on a Friday when stuff would actually be there.
Yeah.
It got ridiculous there for 6 months or so, 7 months. But yeah, I was done real fast with it. I was just like, I need this to stop soon. Thankfully, the big five jumped ship pretty quickly when they realized, and it just goes to show that business model it's not sustainable. You can't borrow against future, income and equity that doesn't even exist yet. And they were borrowing against stuff they didn't even have.
Dude, oh my gosh. And there was a part where it was like, I remember when I was on the phone call with Keith after he announced Blood Moonshine Down. And dude, his anger was just, totally justified, but unreal.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about it. And I, of course, my mind, albeit selfishly, is like, well, what do I do with City of Demons now?
What else do you do though at that point? You have to be selfish to some degree in this business. You can't, if it's not for you, then why do you even give a shit? You shouldn't. Dude, at the end of the day, I'm going to support my friends in the business. I'm going to support the Parkers of the business because this is part of what I do. But at the end of the day, when I write my first book, I'm going to be a little selfish about it.
You have to be. Yeah. And I just was with Keith. I was like, I was asking, do you know any publishers that weren't independent publishers that weren't harmed by this? And asking him his opinion, whatever. And he just says, like, look, and this did help a lot. It also was kind of a twist of the knife, but he was like, I want you to know that he's like, I saw all the pages you turned in and I never gave you notes. He's like, and there was a reason I never gave you notes. He's like, I really liked everything you turned in. He's like, I think you're talented. I think the artist you've teamed up with is very talented. I think the letterer Nikki Powers is very talented. It's like everyone you've teamed up with is talented. He's like, you have a great story. The art's great. He's like, I like it. I really liked it. He's like, from when I shopped around, on FOC for all these different places, they really liked it. He's like, he's like, I'm saying all this to tell you, I will not be the only one who likes it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so we have a shot at a publisher. So it was nice, but at the same time, the twist of the knife was he told me, he said, he was like, oh man, I was so hyped. He's like, oh, there was a lot of good, spread about your comics. Like, oh, don't tell me that. But anyway, afterwards, through a podcast called Indie Comics and Reviews, I got connected to an independent social media personality named K-pop Junkie.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and so I asked her because they told me she knows all about the publisher. She follows it super closely. Like, cool.
And I was telling you before we went live, that's something I'm working to do is to get those connections. Like Red 5 has been invited. I really like what he's doing over there. Like, I really like his stuff. And he also, he has the name Red 5 Comics because he worked on like Star Wars. So he literally got Red 5 Comics from George. Like, he got that permission.
Yeah.
So, and I really like what they do over there. And of course, Wise Acre is I told you beforehand, we're going to have him on in July. Yeah. Frederick seems like a really, really cool guy. And dude, I'm trying to make those connections and get stuff set up that way too.
I was going to say, then talking to Frederick's great, like a great start, dude.
I'm really excited. It's like one of those where you get certain people like booked and you're like, I'm so ready for that interview. Like, you're salivating at the fact, like, I got 10 good interviews between the here and then it's him. And I'm like, yes. But I'm like, those other 9 individuals are equally amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm so excited to talk to them. But you always have that one interview or 2 interviews lined up that you're really excited to talk about.
Dude, and I'm still like, Frederick, great connections already. It's And so K-pop, I asked her like what was her recommendations of publishers reach out who maybe have survived the diamond thing, and
there was a lot that still survived that had the equity to hang on.
Yeah, I was surprised by how many she named, to be honest. But the top of her list was Wise Acre, was Frederick Littles, and I knew of Frederick Littles because of Magnus and the initial connection with Godhood, and so I was like, okay, I've heard of this. I've heard of this guy. I've read. Well, at that point I had it, but like after I got his contact, read Magnus, I was like, okay, so this is cool. This is nothing like
that's his flagship, isn't it? Magnus.
Yeah, Magnus Shankar.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He's got the figures coming out for it and everything else.
Yeah, dude,
those were really cool. I seen the Kickstarter for that. I was like, notify me.
Yeah, dude. So he's doing great at that, and he's just like he's just he's super driven, very organized, and it's very much appreciated.
Dude, that's a killer right there. Get yourself organized. I always tell people, are you organized?
And there's a lot of people who
get yourself there,
especially artistic people who are not organized.
Yeah, it's organized chaos.
Yeah, dude. And then with Frederick, I remember I read all this. I'm like, read Magnus. I'm like, this is cool. And I looked at some of the other stuff he was working on, or like the Wise Acre was working on, and I was like, okay, cool. I have no idea if City of Demons, which is a hardcore like 1920s noir crime murder mystery, like, I don't know if this is like, it's so different. I don't know if he'll go for it. And then I emailed with him, FaceTimed him, talked back and forth, and thank God he got it. And immediately got what we had, and he read through our whole, at that point we made, I think, still had 6 or 7 issues made. And he read through it and was very supportive, got immediately what we were going for, and saw it as a really good way to expand upon their lineup, because they had not had anything that was noir, not had anything that was like super grounded, and based a little bit like ours in historical fiction. And so, and it was just great to work with him, and it has been great to work with him. And what was been special about him is that he's a great writer. And so if you ever need someone to bounce ideas off of, he's the guy. And he's been great at connecting the whole Wise Acre team with each other, just so we can bounce ideas. Like, we already have a group chat where people will say, hey, here's concept designs for character. Here's one concept design for character A. Here's another one. Which one do you guys like? And we have open conversations like that. So that's been really, really awesome. I tell you though, for what he's brought to City of Demons has been great connection distribution wise. And so super thankful for that. Thankful for the connection to Massive. And, but yeah, dude, it's in comics. I'll tell anyone, you gotta love it. 'Cause especially in the independent scene, it's nothing but love for comics is what it's feeling. And dude, it's, I gotta tell people, it's like, you gotta understand your why. Like, I want to make comics. There's no, like, I know a lot of people, like, they've talked, well, like, hypothetically, would you love if City of Demons was like a movie or a miniseries? Like, I just want to write a comic. I love comics. I'm not thinking about this being a TV show. I'm not thinking about being a movie. That's not my goal. I'm not thinking about people like, when they daydream, it's like, oh, what about if I wrote for Spider-Man or I don't know, like Superman? It's like, would that be cool? Sure, we'd be awesome.
Yeah, we're talking. That's like 1% of a 1% who will ever write.
That's not why I do this. Like, I'm not doing this so I can end up one day writing Spider-Man again, which could be cool, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I love the art, like the storytelling art form of comics, because the magic of comics is only something comics can do. And it's very direct, specific communication, because it's not like reading a novel where you have to, think about and imagine everything. It's direct communication between you and the author and you and the artist. And so that's what I really love. Like, when you read something, like we brought up Dark Knight Returns before, you read that's a direct line from you to Frank Miller. It's not your imagination of what Frank Miller could be writing about. It's you to Frank Miller. And that's what I love. It's like I love that very personal. It feels like you're in a friendship with some of these writers.
Yeah.
That's why I love
And you know what's crazy? I'm glad you brought that up. So many of these writers and artists who work on your favorite stories are very personable people. When you see them post to social media and you go, hey, I just picked up that cover right there. It was like my favorite of the bunch. I've read it. The story is outstanding. And you will be surprised the amount that come back with a, yo, hey, no, thank you. We really appreciate hearing that this is our first stab at this kind of book. And we're glad it's resonating with, people who read this. And to me, that's a highlight of my day because like I literally just finished reading your book 5 minutes ago and, hopped on social media to give them a follow because I want to see what's coming next from them. And then like I see them posting about it and it's just like a quick, 2 minutes out of your day, like, hey, I just picked this up and read it. This was fantastic.
Yeah.
This cover was amazing. The cover, you didn't know what the cover was going to give you when you opened the page, And some books are that way. And it's like this cool mystery. Like you can get an idea or a sense of what's about to happen. But then when you get that story and it makes that cover look like, I see what they did with that cover. That's why it's like that. And it just, yes.
Yeah.
It works.
It's a lot of these, the part where it's like on the independent scene, like you mentioned that. I love the relationship between creator and even that small base of I guess fans or just readers, it's like, because for me, I feel so, blessed and lucky that a single person even picked up the comic.
Yeah.
The time out of their day to read it. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. I think that's so cool that,
And I appreciate you sending them over. I didn't have a chance to read it because you got them to me yesterday, and I was in the middle of.
Dude, yeah. I totally understand.
I was doing your interview, and like I said, I didn't have anything yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I'm literally writing, thinking City of Demons. Okay, this detective is this, it's this, and I'm like, okay. And then when you hit me up later, it's like, you're kind of off base. This isn't a this. I was like, shit, let me I immediately jump back on. I started rewriting this whole interview, updated the social media. And I told you, I was like, as soon as you hopped in and we started chatting, I was like, I updated everything except for the description of this video right now and the original title I had planned. Because in my head, I'm thinking, oh, we're turning a demon into a detective, And then
a Darkblood situation,
Yeah, exactly, And I was like, shit. I was like, okay, well, when I re-release this on YouTube and to the social media and to the podcast platforms, I've already fixed the titles. I've already fixed everything else. I just realized that's the one thing. That's what everybody is seeing right now. And they're thinking, oh, demons, cool, detectives. That's not the case. I'm sorry.
Well, it's like
it's a very misleading title.
Well, and I'll say for anyone confused about the title or wondering about it, it's I've told several people, it's funny because my biggest fear with the title was that I thought it was too on the nose, and because City of Demons, the story takes place in 1920s Hollywood, so LA, Los Angeles, City of Angels, and I was like, oh, City of Angels, City of Demons, and so that was my big fear. I'm like, oh, that's
misleading in such a good way though,
because it's all metaphorical, and then the demons part refers to our four central characters: Lucas Short, Lawrence Kay. They're both private detectives, and then we have Harry Boyle and Marcus Sullivan, who are the heads of the two warring crime families. And so that's all the story, through the mystery reveals a lot of these characters' inner demons, and also reveals a lot of the dark underworld forces in Hollywood at that time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that darkness, a lot of that evil is prevalent with Hollywood to this day. So as you unravel,
it's human evil, not demon evil, and that's what makes it even freaking scarier, in my opinion. There's no supernatural entities playing people. It's people playing people and playing, God and devil,
Well, dude, it's one of the things that's always, I think more the most terrifying thing about a lot of like horrible people, a lot of, you know, mass murderers, serial killers, you know, all these terrible things, is that they're people. They're humans.
Yeah.
You know, they're not
That's
like
the
a
scariest part about it right
creature
there.
from, you know, a storybook. They're not, you know, like a literal demon, but they're humans.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, how did a human do? How are they capable of that? And so that's what's really terrifying about it.
Yeah.
And so with Sea of Demons, a story which I think, you know, anyone that gives it a shot and they really dive into the mystery, it's like we use the whole setup of a murder mystery, which is a crime family, the Sullivans, are being targeted by a serial killer. We use that mystery, and you know, Marcus Sullivan, the newly appointed head, due to his father's death, hires 2 private detectives to investigate these murders because he doesn't trust his own family. And so we do that, and through this whole mystery that these 2 private detectives, you know, interact with, we then uncover all the dark underbelly of Hollywood that's extends to even now. And so
100%, yeah.
That was the part where it was like issue 8 reveals, you know, which again has not been released yet, will not be released for a while.
Yeah.
It has been produced. And that's the part where you truly see a lot of that true uncomfortable sort of darkness where, again, I think people who give the series a shot will fall in love with our 4 main characters and will really dig what we're doing, because it's not just a simple murder mystery. It's a murder mystery that we use as an entry point to examine a lot more of the dark, just a lot more of the dark side of Hollywood that really connects well with a lot of the history of old Hollywood during that time period. And you also get to experience some really, you know, obviously I created it, but you know, some really cool, really awesome black and white art that Eze Kingsley was able to make.
We were talking about that beforehand too, because we were discussing this, because that's how I'm doing my book, is that old school, you know, Sin City-esque type of art, which I absolutely love. And you just splash it with just a little bit of color here and there, with the neon signs being neon, and that's one of my favorite styles of art. But I'm glad we're talking about City of Demons this way. But ultimately, at the end of the day, though, what led to the creation of City of Demons? And yes, I know you wanted to make a comic book, but why City of Demons and why 1920s Hollywood?
Right. So
it's not something that's explored very much these days. Is that era of Hollywood where really the corruption and greed that started in there, you know?
Yeah. So I'm just a history buff. So I think what a lot of it came down to was am really drawn to a lot of period pieces, especially period pieces in comics. Yeah. I really love the comic from.
I'm laughing because that's what my book that I'm writing is in that era as well.
Okay, sick, dude.
Yeah.
It's like
it's mafia related, but it's not standard mafia. I'm doing something cool with it.
Wait, what's the title for it, by the way?
I'm leaning toward mafioso.
Okay.
Or something like that, but think Hollywood movie monsters, the mafia, and heads of the family aren't who you think they are, and it's going to be,
dude, hit me up whenever you got it. Like,
I always tell people, I'm like, I got like 60 people I can bounce things off of, like I know all these comic book writers and artists, and you know, I already have my artist picked out, of course, you know, with Fran, great friend of mine. And we do the Halloween special every year together. And like he hit me up one day with this really great idea about how to use what's his name? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I wanted to find out, like, I hadn't even thought about him yet and could use him in the story. So he hit me up one day. He was like, hey, we kind of need this like story behind the story, you know what I'm saying? Like this tertiary story taking place in the background of what's going on in front of us. And he's like, what about we use Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? I was like, I know where you're going with this, and yes, let's do that.
Yeah. Did it so what inspired City of Demons? Yeah.
Yes. Like what ultimately led to the creation of it.
Yeah.
I mean, history buff, that makes a lot of sense.
I just thought that time period of Hollywood, because it's still silent film era, but it's right at the time, the turning point where Hollywood was becoming the epicenter of American pop culture.
Yep.
And so I thought, it's like, okay, that's really interesting. And you learn a lot more about that time period, about sort of like the underground mafia connections of the early studio system, and a lot more of these crazy stories, a lot more of these unsolved murders around Hollywood around that time period. Like there's Fatty Arbuckle. There's that whole trial where may or may not have killed his girlfriend. And then there was William Randolph Hearst, I think, supposedly tried to kill Charlie Chaplin and failed and killed someone else. And then it's just all these wild stories.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I went with that time period as well, is because I love that time period. And like, then the mafia were like the rock stars of their generations in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. It went into like, I want to say the late 40s, early 50s, where the cops were like, okay, we have to shut this shit down.
Well, and also I'm sure it was the same for you. It's like, visually, it just looks sick. like
dude, the suits and everything, the hats,
the cars,
the cars, 100%.
It just has such it's a
vibe. It is a complete vibe.
Yeah, and it's like, I still am waiting for, like, I know the Mafia video games are out there, but I'm still waiting for like the perfect 1920s Mafia experience. And dude, I
mean, there's some really good Yakuza games out there, but not really any Mafia video games that really resonate for the timepiece,
Right. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But so with City of Demons, so there was that part also. So I was like, okay, this is really fascinating. And then you learn about a lot more of, a lot more of the news, at least when I started writing, was, like Harvey Weinstein, all that stuff was coming out.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff with the casting couch has been around forever. So a lot of these more, aspects, I was like, have existed forever, since the heyday of early days of Hollywood. And I was like, okay, so there's a story here to explore. And then developing the characters, the primary lead character is a black detective named Lucas Short, who starts off, he's a World War I vet. He then is a police officer, and then later becomes a private detective. And so a lot of people, I remember one of my first podcasts, they were like, so it's kind of a leap and jump, like a black man being a police officer that early in the 20th century. I'm like, well, actually, again, he's inspired by two real people. So Lucas
Short, that's
the
difference between what was happening on the West Coast and what was happening on the Southeast,
Right, exactly.
That's the difference. When people think that, their mind goes to the Southeast, from like Texas eastward.
Right. And
when you went west of there, it wasn't that way.
Yeah. And it just was, again, that's because he's inspired by Robert Stewart, who was like a police officer, 1886. And super early, like for any major American city, insane, that's really cool. It's happened, but very rare. And I was like, okay, that's really fast. That's a part of LA history you just don't ever hear about. And I was like, and there was another black private detective named Samuel Marlowe, who was like a PI to some of the early Hollywood stars and starlets. And I was like, oh, that's really fascinating. So let's combine these aspects from these characters into one, which is Lucas Short. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then
I love that kind of stuff, though, where you take that slice of history and you put your twist on it and you shove it into a comic book character. I love characters like that, especially when you can identify it. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're reading a comic book and the character, it resonates with you and you're like, why does this character resonate? This is a book one of a book, of a comic book series. But yet the main character or like a side character resonates with you for some reason, and you have to go in, I hate to say this, but you Google lens the character and you're like, that's why. It kind of has this little bit, it reminds you of this person, it reminds you of this person, his personality is kind of like that person's over here, and it just resonates and it sticks to you.
Yeah, and it's like there's a part where it's like, issue 1 was the biggest risk of the whole series for me, not just because it was the first issue, but it is unapologetically a character piece. And the reason it's I stuck to my guns on that was spoiler alert, but it literally ends. So the final few pages, the issue ends on the inciting incident that will lead Lucas into the larger mystery. And so you really don't know at all what the larger mystery is by the end, but the end of it is the inciting incident into it. And the reason
what's wild about that is I don't know what people expect when you release a book one with a new comic book. It's going to be a character piece. Yeah, like it has to be.
But yeah, I want the reader to buy into this character, because if they buy into the character, which again from all the feedback and reviews so far so good, but it's like if they buy into it, then he's your vehicle to be taken with through this whole journey. And I'm like, that's what I need. And that's what.
And what's wild is if you don't make it a character study or a character piece, or you introduce your characters like kind of abruptly, like you don't give enough on them, like, and you just kind of toss them into this wild action, and then you're like, well, why are they doing that?
Right?
Why do they do this? Like, it gives me more questions and anxiety that I need to be reading a book one of a comic book series, like why do I have so much anxiety built up over reading this now? Because it bothers me. Well, like I want to know more about the characters, and then give me some, you're funneling in the story, but it's mainly the character and the dialogue, and like we're learning who these people are, and then you, like you did, like we're solving this murder.
Yeah, and so it's one of these things where it's like that's such a risk, because again, people, it's like so people are quickly looking for a concept hook, so looking for a concept to like latch onto, and I get it with independent ones because you're fighting for air all the time. But for me, I was like, okay, what our hook can be is literally just show people that this is quality. This is different, because this, as like I've read a bunch of independent comics around the time it was released, I'm like, it will stand out. There's no way, even just on the art alone, it's not going to stand out. And so it's for it's definitely a comic for mature readers, but not just for like older readers, but for readers who take the art of comics seriously.
Yeah,
and it's not so. It is a point, but if there's no like epic space battles, there's nothing like it's very much, in the vein of a noir that is going to feed you information, going to have you asking questions about who's who, what's what. Yeah. And it's like, but there will be answers, and I promise you the answers will be good. I think, you don't want
I hope so. I mean, you have 12 issues planned for this book. I hope it's going to be good. I hate for it to fall dead in the water at number 8.
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't. I can promise you that. It's something I've been, when promoting the series to put people on pull lists, I collaborated with different, social media personalities in the comic book space. Let me say not paid, just so everyone knows. So I said, hey, would you mind reviewing this and maybe posting about it? And I'll give you the issues for free. Like, cool. And what I've been so proud on is, because no one knows who I am, no one knows about City of Demons, new property. What I've done is I sent them digital copies of the first 8 issues, because my goal was, I don't want people just to say, because I'm such an unknown, I don't want people to just say, hey, the first issue is good. I want to sell people and put it on a pull list. And I want to sell people in the overarching journey that, hey, this is, through 8 issues, it's really good. Because could you imagine what the end could be? And so far, all the reviewers have said the same thing, which is, one of my favorite guys, Sir Comics a lot, was like, and a few others were just like, I read 8 issues, I wanted more. And they were like, oh, I really like this. And it's one of those things where it's like, again, not paid. So anyone asked, they didn't pay them the same kind of words, but it's like, it's like when their thing is, I kept me going every issue. Like every issue intentionally is on a cliffhanger. So it's like, I want to keep going and keep going. And by issue 8, I want to know how the story ends.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Okay.
Yeah, I get asked all the time if I do comic reviews. And when I first started, I did a few reviews in the beginning. And it's not that I mind them. It's just a lot of extra work that I don't want or have time to do.
Yep.
Because I would rather talk to you about your journey and about what you're doing. To me, that's more fun.
You're 100%. I've been approached twice on social media about, maybe reviewing something. And I was like, and one time I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, I thought it was going to be a comic book. Obviously my social media related. And the guy sent me over, he sent me over a very long novel. And it was like, dude.
Yeah.
There's no pictures here, bro. Like, what's going on?
Like, I think you have me confused with somebody else.
I'm like, I don't know what you think. Like,
yeah, no.
I was trying to be nice because I'm like, but I was like,
I've had authors on here and they've sent me their novels, and I will do my very best because I'm going to bring them on. Yeah. We're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about their journey, their writing process. And eventually I do get to go back and read more of the novel, and I'm happy I got to.
Right.
And I'm happy when they come on because I see independent authors as independence as a whole deserve more love. And if I get a chance to talk to independent authors as well and the work they do, then amazing. I just tell them straight up, I'm not going to have time to read your book just simply because I don't have that kind of time.
Right.
But I eventually, you put the little bunny ear on your page that you're on as you're digitally scrolling the book. And I eventually make my way through the book. It might be months after they've been on the show, but I do eventually get an opportunity to read these books, and they're all fantastic. And what I liked about yours, I was going through the art and looking at the, and I appreciate you greatly for sending those over because I'm excited to read this. I need to finish editing an episode. I'll edit this episode. And then I have my May schedule is one show every 4 days. So I'm going to have a lot of time to go back and read the whole series.
I've sent you over the first 8 issues.
You did. Yeah.
So dude, take it. Yeah. Whenever you read those, let me know what you think. Cause I think
what I love's from the cuff, I had to pull some covers obviously out of some of the folders to have something to, push this out and to say, hey, Parker's going to be on the show. And as we're going through the covers, I love your covers, the black and white covers, but what I really love are your phrase covers.
Yeah.
Where it was just famous quotes through history from these philosophical quotes, and they fit the story and the vibe so well. I was like, he had to put in so much time to get those. And I was like, he was here with me, but now I'm like, you're up here now, because that's a lot of work to find quotes that match a single issue of a comic book to make it work. And you can read those quotes and you almost know what to expect when you go into and you start flipping through that book, or in this case, flipping through the pages of this the electronic book that you sent me. And I thought that was really dope, because I think you started doing that on book 3, if I'm not mistaken.
It's been there.
Because I didn't see it on issue 1 or 2, or I might have missed it on
it's
number
on
2.
Issue 1 and 2. Yeah, so it's there from the beginning. It's there from the beginning. I think the layout was a little bit different where it was positioned, but yeah, but it's there. And then it was just one of those things where, and
I was going to ask you, you got to tell me what the concept and why you did that, because that to me is the coolest thing ever.
So thank you, because I did it and I was like, that got to be super pretentious. There was a part where
it's not though, because I like certain TV shows. I always reference Grimm. I reference the shit out of Grimm, because Grimm, I thought in the early everything but the finale about that show was beautifully done. But David always started out with these quotes from like philosophers throughout history and that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's so cool because you know what the vibe is going to be in that show based off that single quote.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never thought to apply that to a comic book, let alone a comic book cover.
Right.
Which is a whole vibe of its own. And the way it's done, I was like, that is dope. I've never seen that. And I've been reading comics, for a very long time. And I've been talking to creators now for a year and a half. And this is the first time I've seen something like that done. I was like, that's so unique. And by doing that, you let people know without really letting them know what they're getting themselves into when they open the cover of that book. And I was like, that's genius level stuff right there.
Yeah, I think the origin, I kind of just did it, to be honest with you, because it just kind of felt right. But
yeah,
I think the origins of it probably go back to probably Alan Moore, because I know he kind of did those quotes at the end of certain issues, far back as
his Swamp Thing. I was going to say his Swamp Thing.
And I know obviously he kept it with
his books as well.
Yeah, and he kept it with Watchmen, Vendetta.
God, talking about a lineup of books, man. Like that dude.
We're never going to see, and I truly believe there's a million great writers. Well, not a million, but there's a lot of really good writers in comics. I don't think. Also, I think it's due to the time he came in. I don't think we're going to see another Alan Moore.
Alan Moore. He's writing novels. Like he's left comics behind.
He wrote a 2,000-page novel, which I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I
seen that and I was like, I bet that's so good. I need to find it.
I would love for DC. I mean, I know he hates comics, like the big two.
Yeah.
I know he hates them, but
it's wild because he wrote one of the best Swamp Thing runs you've ever laid your eyes on.
Oh, it's my favorite comic run of all time. And
dude, same.
He wrote that. He also did Captain Marvel, Marvel Man.
Yeah.
And that's now owned by Marvel. But I was like, and he did a Kevin Brin run for a while. I mean,
dude, V Vendetta is Phenomenal.
From
Watchmen
Hell is
From Hell is his.
Gosh. Yeah, dude. And the ending of
the
From
movie
Hell
did not do that comic book justice.
Oh, dude, it was horrible.
There was points where I was like, oh, this is on point, and then you're like, oh fuck, there it is. There's the movie magic.
Dude, good lord, dude. But
I thought the movie was done very well. It just was not a good comic book adaptation.
No.
And for those who don't know, yes, that is a comic book adaptation.
Yep. And I know a lot of people still love and have a lot of affinity for Zack Snyder's Watchmen adaptation.
Yeah.
I have issues like a lot of people who have with it. Specifically that kind of a lot of the characters seem like they have superpowers.
They don't.
It's just
they're
weird.
Straight vigilantes, yeah.
Right. And it's just that's the problem where there's a whole Zack Snyder's style just does not mesh well, in my opinion, with Moore's writing and Moore's narrative. I just don't think it was a great there's great moments in it. The tile sequence is one of the greatest tile sequences ever.
Yeah.
But beyond that, the styles, in my opinion, don't really mesh super well. I don't think it's a horrible adaptation.
Yeah.
But I think there can be a much better adaptation.
The only thing I really thought they had done very well was Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
I thought they done him very well.
Oh, the casting of Rorschach.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And then just the way Dr. Manhattan, when he fried himself, and then as he's coming back, that sequence was done very well. It's very it's very similar to what they did in the comic book.
Is actually phenomenal. Yeah, again, there's great moments in there. The title sequence is amazing. The Manhattan sequence is great.
Yeah,
everything to do with the Rorschach.
Awesome. Yeah, dude, he's phenomenal, dude. The guy who plays him to me is just from a character, dude. Yeah, you couldn't ask for a better person, and he plays those deranged characters like that so damn well. He's a character actor through and through.
Yeah.
I think he's done some movies where he wasn't quite like that, and they were really good too. And you're just like, Dude, he's so good. Like, why? Why are you so good?
It's just with Watchmen, I know they made an animated version of it not too long ago.
Yeah.
Which I liked. But it's like, I still want another live action adaptation.
Yeah.
It can even be a miniseries.
I would love a miniseries where it's true to the comic book.
Yeah.
I thought when Invincible, the animated series for Invincible first come out, I knew they were going to be able to show certain things. It just can't be happening.
Right.
But I thought it done pretty well. Yeah, I thought it did pretty well.
Right.
From a homage of the book. And then The Walking Dead the same way, when The Walking Dead started with, because it was Old Man Carl, right?
Yeah.
And then when they killed Carl, I'm like, he's telling the damn story. How do you kill the man telling the story? I was like, done with you. Be gone.
I was about to say, Walking Dead is an interesting. Like, I love the comic.
So good. It's so damn good.
Kirkman, Kirkman just hits on all angles. My first introduction to him, oddly enough, was, I think, to even his admission, would not be one of his better works, was his Ant-Man series. Which is like
he'll probably tell you that wasn't his best.
Dude, it is total insanity, and it's like it's like, what is this? And you read that, dude, and you're like, wait, this guy went on to do Walking Dead, Invincible,
the list goes on and on. Here's what I think the problem is with that. Outside, if you let him do, he's like Tinian, right?
Yeah.
Tinian cannot write a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go, hey, Tinian, I want a story about this, you have all the collective freedom you want to do what you want to do, but I need it to be about this.
Right.
You tell Kirkman the same thing. Same as that thing. You're going to get two very completely different stories, but they're going to be so uniquely different because of who they are, but they're going to be so damn good because you just gave them all the freedom in the world to do what they wanted to, but it had to be about topic A.
Right.
And you're going to get the best story you ever read about it.
Yeah. It's, dude, like with all these, Kirkman's one of them. There's a great few writers in comic who really do show you, it's like he almost make you feel bad for even trying. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people have problems with his Batman run, but look, he's a great writer. Tom King, I read his Vision miniseries for Marvel.
Yeah.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. And this, I don't care about Vision, but this story is one of the best Marvel stories.
It's wild, right?
And
some writers can just make you give a damn about a character.
Yeah.
I
didn't care about that at all. I didn't care about Monster.
I always did. I always loved Swamp Thing. There's been some bad runs, and I wish he deserves to this day to have another Alan Moore-esque run.
He does, and I didn't care anything for him, but I kept hearing from my friends, "Oh, Alan Moore Swamp Thing, Alan Moore Swamp Thing." No one showed up about it. I was like, "Fine, I'll give it a shot." So his first, technically his second, but his first real issue of Swamp Thing, where it was Alan Moore Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
I remember the anatomy lesson.
He did finish, I think he finished an issue for somebody for their, and then the next issue was his, and he was just like, I don't like anything this guy was doing, and
dude,
here's Alan Moore Swamp Thing.
And it is the greatest single issue of a comic I've ever read. Anatomy lesson, it is mind blowing how good it is, and it's so good. His rendition of Swamp Thing is so good that Lin Wein, the original creator, was like, "Oh yeah, Alan Moore is better." He always says, "I know you're just better," and he's like, "Oh, it's it's crazy when your reinvention of the character is so good that even the original creators, oh yeah, Alan Moore is better."
It's always crazy because people are always complaining oh, this person's nerfed or whatever. He's too overpowered. I'm like, Swamp Thing evolved into basically Mother Nature.
Yeah.
He's basically a god. He can go dimension to dimension to dimension as long as there is a blade of grass.
Yeah, he's jumping planets. It's
it's amazing how he just floop, floop.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell? And I love the stuff anytime you throw John and Swamp Thing, John Constantine, in a book together, it's just going to be amazing because there's two like oddly different characters, but they work so well together.
Well, who's the other character who turns into a demon? He's like a yellow demon guy.
Ah, God, I know who you're talking about. What is his name? I'm not very much a DC person. I just like very specific characters.
Well, he's another type of character where it's that super element where it's like,
and I know I can see him. I can see him in my head. Oh,
I'm blanking on it. So
I am too. Yeah.
But dude, it's like, oh my gosh, but
like the Justice League Dark with Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman led Justice League Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, with Zatanna, Constantine. I forgot who else was in there. There was like 3 or 4 more others that were just like, holy shit, this is so good. I'm like, and Wonder Woman was probably at her best in that book.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to think of. I don't know how I disagree. I don't think I disagree. The dude, but there's all these characters where it's like if you get a great writer behind it or a great artist behind it, like you're like it's like wow, like I didn't even know they could be this cool. Like there's like still like so much of that, and ideally like one of my friends like if I don't know like Marvel ever picked you up, which again not why I'm doing this. Let me clarify that. It's like who would you go at? Like what character would you write for? I'm like, well, I was like probably I know he's A-list, but I don't think a lot of people was like his favorite, like Thor. I think there's a really great story of Thor that harkens back.
I've never read I take that back. I was going to say I've never read a Thor story where I really liked it.
But Thor not like beloved in the comic book space, to be honest.
But the Thor and Black Panther stuff I thought was really good. And but I'm just not a fan. I don't like to read him. I don't like to read Marvel that much anyway. Mm-hmm. There's very little Marvel I will read. I will read certain runs of certain characters, or if they, like when what's her name? Psylocke came back out.
Oh yeah,
and she was being written by Crash Wong. Crash is such a great writer. Like she made me want to read it, but then after a while, I was just like, she's being held back by Marvel. Well, like you could tell. Like
you could tell that with I gotta be careful what I say. You could look, Jonathan Hickman is a really, really talented writer.
Absolutely.
And you see some of the projects that he's thrown into, and you're like, there's no way he chose to do that.
The money was really good there.
Yeah, I was like, and Hickman, I mean, golly, dude, he got me into Fantastic Four. I was not a Fantastic Four fan.
I like some of the older Fantastic Four, and I was just talking.
It's kind of a carefree adventure book more than anything.
Yeah. So I was talking to Kev when he was on, which I'm going to be finishing his episode probably tomorrow or tonight and getting that scheduled to go live. But I told him, I'm like, dude, our first introduction in comic books to Agatha Harkness isn't what we get in the TV series. She was a nanny for the Fantastic Four.
Yes.
And that's how we get introduced to her originally. And then we got this really cool backstory on who she is and what she is, which I absolutely love the TV series.
I've not seen it.
It's a must-watch simply because of Death.
Okay.
Aubrey Plaza plays Death, and she is amazing. And it talks about the relationship between her and Agatha. And then we were talking to him like more, and he's like, he brought up Thanos, and I was like, do you know why Thanos was collecting the Infinity Stones?
Yeah, for Death.
For Death. He was in love with Death. I'm like, okay, did you know who Death was actually seeing at that time when Thanos was collecting the Infinity Stones, and who she was actually with?
Not off the top of my head.
He's got movies.
What? He's got movies.
Yeah.
No idea. But Ghost Rider?
No,
I have no idea.
Uncle Deadpool. Yeah.
That is insane. Okay, that's kind of
Death and Deadpool were having a thing. Thanos was in love with Death, so he put together the Infinity Gauntlet because he wanted to to give her souls, basically. I think it's how that works. It's crazy, right? Because we got Secret Wars and stuff like that coming up, and I'm like, I don't really think people really realize how big that actually is.
Dude, people don't. Well, I do miss a lot about so specifically the big two. I do miss you look back at some of these older, goofier comics. There was a sense of fun. You look back at the first Secret Wars, which was all the superheroes, all the villains. And look, is it much literary value there? Probably not. No. Is it awesome? And to see Spider-Man in a black suit, you see Hulk hold up a mountain. And Iron Man turns out to be Rhodey, and Human Torch is in a relationship with this one dude. No, it's all there.
And the Secret Wars weren't just being fought on Earth; they were being fought across multiple Earths and galaxies.
Awesome. It was so cool.
There would be an episode or an issue where where's your main five? Where's your main five Avengers?
Right.
It's being the war right now is being fought by these people. That's because the main group had to go fight a war, on this other planet. Right. They went to this other planet to help them out. And then they're back all of a sudden in the following issue. And you're like, and you didn't get that in the main run. You got it in another book. And you're like, it was just a wild, just those big adventure, yes, the Secret Wars, but it's this huge adventure comic taking place over several different stories and titles. And they just did this. Marvel just did that recently with, what was it, Gang Wars or whatever it was, with Spider-Man and all the street level heroes. With an amazing story. Star Wars did it with Crimson Reign over several different titles, told the story of Crimson Reign, and dude, oh my god. It is. I haven't heard of this. Find the trade paperback for Crimson Reign. It includes all the complete story of Crimson Reign through all the different titles that they told the story through. And it is such a good book. And you don't have to collect all the comic books like I did and all the different titles that I did to get the entire story of Crimson Reign.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, this was cool.
That is a phenomenal story. You want some good Star Wars read? Crimson Reign.
Yeah, I've been starving for. I haven't seen the Darth Maul show yet, so
probably. Yeah, I haven't either. I hadn't had time.
Yeah, I haven't had time to watch it yet. I've been starving for some really great Star Wars stuff.
Crimson Reign, and then when you get done with that, jump over and read Dark Droids.
Dark Droids. Okay.
Yeah, and then message me after you get done reading it and be like, "Holy shit, that ended."
Put that on the list. Sweet. Okay, dude.
Yeah, Dark Droids is another one. Just phenomenal series.
Dude. What? Is that a robot with lightsabers? That's awesome.
Dude, what? Yes, it is.
That's so cool, dude. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there was a triple cover with all the droids across the covers.
Yeah.
I eventually need to have that one framed because I have all the connecting covers. And it is just such a cool read. The ending is going to blow your mind of that one.
Dude.
But I know we're completely off topic and we went off the rails, but I would like to round this out a little bit and kind of bring us home a little bit and just kind of your indie comic journey and kind of what has your experience been? I know we touched a little bit about Wise Acres and Frederick Little, and the dude's phenomenal. I only got to speak to him briefly and booking him later on this year. And what's it been like working with him? He seems like a fantastic dude, by the way.
Frederick Little's dude, he's been great to work with. Make comics, independent comics is hard. Obviously, it's brutal. It's really really hard. So you have to love it. And at the end of the day, you want a partner, help you with distribution, help you with all these things, who loves comics as much as you do. And Frederick Little's not only loves comics as much as I do, he loves it probably more than anyone I know. So Frederick Little's has been so awesome to work with. He's been very receptive, great communicating, open book. I probably annoy him with how many messages I send him on a weekly basis. But yeah, no, he's been great, dude. And he's been so open with the whole Wise Acre team about, where he sees us going And, we've been, causing with City of Demons out and Magnus out. We've been causing a little bit, getting a little bit more name recognition out there for Wise Acre, and distribution has taken notice. And so we've been very positive about where both series are going right now. And yeah, dude, again, he loves comics, and this is a guy who's not thinking about what series he can take on, or like TV show or movie. He's thinking about what great comics can we just produce. And I'm telling you, anyone out there who loves independent comics or just loves comics in general, great stories, go check out Wise Acre. Go check out City of Demons. Go check out Magnus. Dude, if you just love great stories, you'll love these stories. And
and like I said, I spoke to him. I messaged with him just a few minutes, and because I had followed him, and I always try to anytime I'm having somebody on, you follow them. It's kind of like one of those things where you want to follow them, follow who they're connected with, and you never know, it's going to lead you somewhere else eventually. Like somebody is going to reach out and be like, "Hey, can I come and talk about my book?"
Right.
And that's basically how my show works. Is it's a lot of word of mouth, and I love that aspect of it. Like I just had Tom Rash on, who literally Googled independent podcasts or independent comic podcasts and found me, which to me, I was like, what? I was like, hell yeah. And because that means it's like what I'm doing is starting to expand its growth. And I was so happy to hear that. And but you messaged, I had tagged him or something, I forgot what it was. And all of it, I followed him, and he's got his set up to where it just automatically sends you a message. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to shoot my shot. I was like, hey, I'm going to have Parker on tomorrow. Would you be willing to come on and tell me what it's like to be a publisher and talk about publishing comic books? And he was like, I would love that. Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't do it anytime soon. I'm like, dude, I'm booking for July right now. I'm like, everything before that's already taken.
Right. He's
like, oh, perfect. Here's what my schedule looks like for July. Do you have something in this time frame? So I was like, that day right there. He's like, perfect. I was like, shit, this was easy.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited, dude. Like he just seems like a great dude to work with and to have on your team. And I love a good comic book mind as well. Just somebody you can just go back and forth with.
He's a great writer, dude. He's a great creative, and dude, he's on top of it. And in this industry, which is brutal, brutal beyond belief, you need someone like that in your corner. And so, I couldn't be more grateful.
And I will say this, though. We say it's brutal. We say all these things, but there's such a great independent comic community out on Facebook where everybody's encouraging. There's a few that are just like, you can't stand them. You can't tolerate them just because they come off as like complete pompous asses. I did this. Like, hey, that's great, dude. Now pick up the guy next to you and give them those same words of encouragement that somebody gave you. Right. And I wish I was more active in those groups as well outside of what I do, but it's hard when you're always doing this.
Yeah, and it's like that part where it's like with comics, and you're 100% right. It's like while it's hard and all this stuff, I've also never found a better community of creatives that are there. Like we all know we're in the same, same struggle, and you got a great group of people and a great that just really want to support each other. And if you find, like the right independent comic group or whatever, they
And there's like 13 of them, 14 of them out there.
Right. Not like I'm a jerk, or there's a handful of people I've met through this where, think they're the next, I don't know, I guess Alan Moore or whatever. And it's like you read what they have, it's like, oh, you're way off. And so you have a few delusional people, but most of them are good people that just are going for their dreams. And, I'm never going to be against that. So
and I'm so happy I've not ran into that yet. Like I dread the day I run into that, and it's going to be, either on the pre-show where we're talking and we're doing our sound check, and I'm going to realize like this dude is just like a complete, like, I can't have this dude on, and I'm going to have to shut it down.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
It hasn't happened yet, but I know it will eventually happen, you know?
Dude, maybe not.
Hey, fingers crossed, knock on some wood. I hope it never happens, because I'm not going to tolerate it. And I'm just going to be like, this show isn't going to happen. I'm still going to go live, and I'm going to explain why the show it doesn't have a guest on tonight. Like, sorry, dude, I'm going to blast you.
I've been in contact again. It's the same deal where it's like you meet just like small percentage. So like maybe like 2% or less than that.
Yeah,
it's like that are really there, and they do not. It's just a weird, pompous, arrogant energy and vibe.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't even think they really like comics. They're there for the potential celebrity part of it. I'm like, dude,
yeah, you're in the wrong world, buddy.
In comics, buddy. This is
like,
you gotta understand. To most people, this is not like this. Is like the such uncool, dorky thing to do.
Yeah,
so like
there's very few comic creators out there who can ride the wave of being a rock star.
Oh, extremely few, and it's like,
and I said the 1% of the 1% earlier, and that those rock people that end up with rock star status are the 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah. And it's like we talk about it's like, and there's a lot of hard work involved in this. There's a lot of this and this and this and this. Another thing that helps people, when you don't have the clout to just do whatever you want, be easy to work with, be easy to talk to. If someone reaches out to you, like for instance, a person found me on a podcast and asked me to sign a copy of a book to send to them.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And I was like, it was my first one. And I was like, dude, don't even worry about paying for the shipping. I got you. Like, yeah. And it's just like,
I always like that little personal touch. Exactly. When I support a Kickstarter or something like that, like I'm excited to get that book. And I'm like, if I don't see a signature on it, I'm kind of like, really, dude? Really? 2 seconds out of your day?
I will admit, for my crowdfunding campaign through Zoop, I did not have signatures because the printing was not coming directly from me. So
that's a different story. If the publisher is taking care of your shipping, because I know like some places like they print and then they ship for you, that's the difference. But no, it's some great communities out there. I highly encourage, if you're into this, find one of those communities, ask questions. Some of them have some very helpful people on it. Some of them are just really brutally honest with you, and you're going to get your feelings hurt at some point.
And you need it.
But you need to hear it.
You need to hear
100%.
it.
And you're going to come out the other end of that going, I needed to hear that.
Right. And it's like that part where I tell someone, it's, always listen to old criticism, understand what you are willing to change or may not change, because there's that part to it. But never be arrogant enough to think that you're just, again, like I mentioned before, like some of these people, like you don't ever think you're delusional to think you're just the perfect like storyteller and no decision you've ever made can be possibly wrong. Like, guys, like, no, it's just not reality.
There's a very small percentage of people out there who are going to submit something to Image or to one of the other independent, quote unquote, independent creators. And they're going to go, I love that. We got to have it. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I even tell people is like typically, even with a circumstance like that, you could maybe get the rare person that, sends in, they look at it. But even for something like Image, to my understanding, to people I've talked to, unless you have a direct connection there, they're most likely not going to look at something you just submitted, even though the link is probably open right now as we talk.
It's open. I think it stays open if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It's like, so there's that part where it's like, don't go into comics trying to be a superstar or with that, like go into comics because you love comics, dude. You love storytelling.
If you don't love it, why are you trying?
Yeah. Cause it's like, when I do this, like I'm doing it right now, I'm doing it for fun. And because, I know that it's a risk I'm taking that, if I skipped out on it, 20 years down the line, I'm going to kick myself in the foot for not putting myself out there, so.
Oh, 100%. And it's one of those where I have a notebook full of all these, like, everything related to mine. And it's like, I'm at the point now where it's like, put up or shut up. I need to start putting it on paper, or not paper necessarily, but on a notepad.
Right.
And which I have Notepad. I do transfer a lot of my notes into Notepad that I know for a fact I want to have that relationship in my comic book, or that idea in my comic book. But it's literally just like, I haven't set myself a hard deadline yet, but I'm about to, just that way it forces my hand to do it. And that's also why when you see like later schedules come out this year, I'm not doing as many shows, because I do want to do this other thing.
Right.
So, and if it sucks, it sucks. People tell me. That's the way I see it.
Well, it's like, dude, like, I mean, the way I feel is also is like, you have the guts to put your stuff out there. There's a great deal of people who don't have the guts or too scared to even do that. So
I always say, like, I wonder how many like brilliant comic books or stories are just sitting in a notepad or on a shelf somewhere.
Yep.
Or the next like great movie is just sitting on a shelf somewhere. And I referenced Kevin Smith when I was talking about that, because I know he has a wall of scripts that may never see the light of day.
Oh, George Lucas is the same way.
Yeah, same.
And George Lucas frustrates me because I'm like, dude, you're a billionaire at this point. Like,
oh yeah,
just hand, even if you don't want to put the time and energy into it, hand it off to like someone who wants to make these scripts, because I want to see what you have to say.
Oh, 100%. Especially if it's Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, dude, let me get that.
Or even like something that's not Star Wars. Like, what else? Like, because I know he did American Graffiti and THX, but like, outside of Star Wars, what else does George Lucas want to say or have to say? And
well, he is building that $1 billion museum in San Francisco.
That actually looks pretty dope.
That is like the dopest thing ever. I'm like,
yeah,
yes, I will make a trip to the West Coast just for that.
Dude, it's I think I will too. And dude, it's like
I'll probably get a group of friends and we'll like rent an RV and just haul it.
Dude, it's like, and I know like Star Wars is brand wise is not particularly in a great place. I don't care when that thing opens.
Hey, I like the new stuff too. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I'm in my 40s and I'm like, if I'm getting new Star Wars, I am cool with it. Like, even if it's not the best stuff on earth, I'm still getting new Star Wars at the end of the day. That's how I see it.
My thing is that in general with Star Wars is like, I'm just like, Star Wars, I do think brand wise is maybe at its weakest point.
Yeah.
Maybe ever. And I think just because like I love Star Wars, I get a hype like, oh, this is coming out. But I've noticed like with my friends, like my generation of like, we grew up with the Clone Wars and one of the prequels. And so we grew up still like, oh, loving Star Wars. Every young boy loves Star Wars. Like it's literally a property made for little boys. Gunship, lightsaber fights, like spaceships, like perfect for little boys. And then like now most of them, to be honest with you, are just apathetic because they've been burned so many times, all this stuff. And I'm hoping that some way there can be a single, it will have to be a movie. Yeah. That will just light the spark back, because I'm hyped, but I don't think many people are hyped for the Mandalorian movie.
Yeah. I was going to say, we'll find out May 26th. I mean, I personally am, because of what the future could be from that story.
Right. Exactly. Me too.
The ending of that movie is going to literally build the next probably 5, 10, 15 years of the Star Wars franchise.
Right. And for me, it's like, so that's what I'm looking forward to. But it's another thing where it's like, I'm looking at this. So obviously Disney fumbled the ball marketing wise, the Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
What are you doing, dude? Like,
yeah.
You spent $10 million for a bit.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know what. They were way too overconfident about that. Because
the Rotten Tomatoes trailer was better than that.
Well, it's like, and that speaks to me about how out of touch Disney is with that property. Because you only release something like that at the Super Bowl when you think the property or the brand is untouchable. That's the only reason you do that. And I'm like, oh, you don't realize like Star Wars is actually in a rough spot. You need to do something to light it back.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that, I mean, I'm hyped for it, but
I mean, I am too. I mean, I'm a big fan of the
marketing.
Hutt.
I'm going to be honest, it's been bad.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Hutts, and we're getting Rhoda the Hutt all grown up in this movie. Who, by the way, Rhoda the Hutt is the little larva that Ahsoka and
the Clone Wars movie.
Anakin saved. Yeah.
Oh. I'm hyped about that, and like, I think the action consistently from the show, if the show's anything judged by, is awesome. Yeah. So again, I think I'm really excited for it. Star Wars is weird though because there's been so many canceled projects. Like Rian Johnson, I don't think will ever. I think he probably received 1 million death threats, but I think, like honestly,
honestly, you're probably
fans can get about this stuff.
Yeah,
and like so, I think his trilogy is.
It's like the amount of actors that just they receive death threats over Star Wars. I'm like, dude, they didn't write the movie.
Hayden Christensen did not write that dialogue. Okay, guys, like let's everyone chill out. Like that dialogue. Yeah, and like what I say, you try to make half his dialogue sound natural. Okay, it's impossible.
Yeah.
The sand line. It's not just the sand line, but that line in particular.
Yeah.
There's
some
you can give that
dialogue
to Leonardo DiCaprio, and it would not do.
Yeah.
My goodness. But
and it sucked because and I love those movies too. Like because it brings us back to the original, and you understand who Darth Vader is at that point. But let's start bringing this home, man.
We got sorry my bad.
Yeah, man. You put two dudes with some mild ADHD together and tell us to talk about comic books. We're going to talk about comic books and everything else in between. I mean, we've covered everything that I wanted to cover, and then we covered everything else in between as well. So, but tell everybody if they want to pick up a copy or a digital version of City of Demons right now, where can they do that?
Yeah, so first I would say check out your local comic book shop. There's a very good chance it could be already on your on its shelves. If not already, please make sure to add to your pull list. Issue 3, we released the first 2 issues already. Issue 3 is being released May 27th to stores. And then the FOC for issue 4, which again is it's a really solid issue. I think people are really going to love it.
Yeah,
is going to be FOC is June 1st.
I mean, if it's issue 4, that's kind of like it has to have like something like a pinnacle is about to happen. You know, you have to get that because it's a 12-part miniseries or a 12-part series. You got to think every 4th issue you're going to have a pinnacle or something happen that's going to give you that next arc of the story, if you will. So,
no, exactly, and that's where it's like that's such a pivotal turning point for the story onwards that I think people are really going to dig it.
And for anybody wondering, FOC is final order cutoff,
right? And again, if it's not in your stores or it's not in your LCS. All comics can be purchased on the Wise Acre website. So just put
really easy to navigate it too,
right? And it's just Wise Acre Comics, buy tab, and City of Demons should be one of the first ones to pop up. And you can buy from that website the 1st, 2nd, and soon to be 3rd issue as well. So again, please be sure to add to your pull list and pick up any previous issues you may have missed out on. Because again, it's a comic that if you give it a chance, I think everyone will really dig.
Mm-hmm. I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and read it yet, but in just going through what I've gotten to go through, I really like it. And like I said, I love the covers that you're doing with it, with the quotes, and because it's such a unique thing. But if people want to follow and support Parker and City of Demons and Wise Acre Comics, where can they find y'all?
So, primarily, I would say Instagram. We have the growing Instagram. Our username is cityofdemons_comic, and so that's primarily where we're going to get our bigger updates. Once we hit 1,000 followers, we're going to start Discord, which gives people a much more exclusive look at some art being developed, a lot more of out previous, so behind the scenes look at previous outlines, sketches to get a better idea of how the comic came together. And so, yeah, can't wait for all that.
Awesome stuff, man. And for anybody who's tapped in with us and probably just heard us talking about the most random of shit, I do apologize. This was a great conversation. There's a lot of conversation about City of Demons, and I admitted some faults here because my initial thought on what this was not what it was, and I apologize for the title. All that stuff will get fixed on the backside. I promise y'all. Parker, appreciate you coming on, dude. I know you've been on the books for a hot minute. I appreciate it. You coming on, talking to us about City of Demons and about just everything else in between as well, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Have to have you come back on later on just and do it again, man, when issue 6 or so, when we're at that good point in issue 6 that we should be getting, I think. We'll see. I'm going to be reading it here soon.
Awesome, man. Yeah. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it later. But yeah, thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on.
Dude, like I said, open invite, man. Welcome back anytime. You know how to get a hold of me. But that's it, people. So if you're looking for a comic that blends horror and noir, City of Demons is definitely what you have been missing. If you like the 1920s Hollywood, definitely you want to check this one out. Make sure you check out Parker Newman on his Instagram and Wise Acre as well on their Instagram. And make sure you just support Indie Comics. And as always, make sure you like, follow, and share, because this has been the USDN Podcast, where Indie Comics come to life. Ladies and gentlemen, the council is now adjourned. Y'all be safe out there.
It's a trap!
Hey,